How to write a company policy and procedure. Most company policies fail before they're even rolled out, and I'll tell you why. Before you write another procedure, make sure you listen to what I have to say here and don't make that mistake. I've seen simple policies outperform complex manuals every time. By the end of this video, you will know the essential elements that every policy and procedure in a company should have for it to be successful and followed. The first thing we always start with is purpose. You gotta define for yourself, what is your purpose of creating this procedure? What is the purpose of the procedure? What is the purpose of the policy? If you don't have the purpose well defined, then you can start writing on one subject and then go to the next one. And in the end, you can't really ensure that what you had in mind at the beginning will translate to the end. That's why it's very important to define the purpose. Ask yourself, why am I writing this procedure? What is this procedure supposed to tell or teach a person? And when you understand that, that is your purpose. The next thing that is very important is ownership. Who owns this procedure? Who owns the policy? Who is it written for? If you don't have ownership, the procedure cannot be executed because the person who's supposed to execute it will not know about it. So defining the roles, the responsibilities, the ownership is very important, because then you are talking to a specific audience. When you are writing the policy, you understand what the purpose is, and then you understand who you are writing it to. So maybe you're writing it to your production manager or your COO, or maybe you're writing it for the receptionist. You're writing it to a specific person with the idea that then they will execute that policy or that procedure. The next thing to have in mind is that those policies and procedures should be simple. It has to be written with simplicity. Don't use big words. Don't use overcomplicated sentences. Write what you want to say in a simple way. Again, think about the end user in mind. Think about the purpose. How would you explain that so they will understand? When we write policies and procedures, we also include best practices, the reason why, what works, what doesn't work, any exceptions. If you have that, it's not just work instructions. We're not writing work instructions, do this or do that. You want to make sure that people understand the entire context and why those particular work instructions exist. So if someone comes with a bright idea, let's say a few months down the road, a few years down the road, they will know that whether it will work or not, because they will have to understand the context behind it. And it also goes the other way. If somebody comes up with a bright idea and your team member knows the policy and knows the reason behind it, if somebody has a suggestion, then they can judge and evaluate whether this is a good suggestion or not. Here's an example. Let's say, for instance, you are writing a procedure and you're explaining that something has to be done in a certain sequence. If you don't explain why it has to be done in that sequence, then somebody down the road can come in and say, well, that sequence doesn't work anymore. I want to skip step A. But maybe step A was so important that for a certain customer, if step A is not being done, that customer is not going to buy from you anymore. So someone comes in, eliminates step A, and then the customer doesn't buy anymore. That could have been prevented by explaining why you're doing A, B, and C, and why you're doing it in that particular sequence. So that is very important to include the context, the why, the best practices, exceptions. Maybe we're doing it for 95% of the time, but in this kind of circumstance, we do it a little bit differently. That has to be included as well. Now, effective processes and procedures and policies have to be tested, especially if you are creating a new one, but also if you are creating an existing one and you are documenting them, then give it to someone so they can test it. They can actually execute it from beginning to end and then give you feedback as to what worked and what didn't work. That's what we call the rollout. We roll it out to the people that are supposed to do that procedure, that are supposed to execute that procedure or abide by that policy, have them read it, and then we give them a survey where we ask feedback questions to see if they see anything missing, if they were able to execute what they needed to be executing by following the procedure. And then you gather the results and you make the edits accordingly. And of course, the key component is training. The policies, the procedures are there in order to be trained on. Don't keep it as a secret. Don't keep it in some place that nobody knows about it. Well-documented processes and procedures need to be followed. And that's why I say do not concentrate on more documentation. If you already have processes documented, go ahead and roll it out. Make sure that they're revised, they're audit them, make sure they are correct, that they're simple, etc. And then roll them out so people start using them. And then add more procedures as you go. But processes and procedures are only as good as they're actually implemented, not as they are documented. Yes, they absolutely have to be documented, but they have to be used. Once you have your processes and procedures documented, the big challenge is getting them used, getting them implemented. So make sure to watch my next video, how to use SOPs, standard operating procedures, to optimize your business processes and workflows. And if you didn't subscribe to my channel yet, please do so right here below so you can watch the rest of the videos about processes and procedures and systematizing your business. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.